Welcome back to the show. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that touches every single one of us, navigating the complexities of our minds and preparing for a future that's rapidly being reshaped by artificial intelligence. Think about it for a moment. How often do you find yourself caught in a loop of what-if scenarios, especially when facing a significant challenge? Does that inner critic ever get the better of you? Well, today, we have the perfect guide to help us reframe these thoughts and build incredible resilience. We're thrilled to welcome Coach Mark from expertinfluencepro.com, also affectionately known as Coach Mark in Manila. He's not just any coach. He's an online leadership, AI safety, and communications mindset coach who has guided thousands of professionals, lawyers, doctors, diplomats, military personnel through high-stakes communication and team leadership. And now, he's turning his expertise towards helping parents raise resilient, AI-ready children. Coach Mark, it's an absolute honor to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You often emphasize the power of mindset, especially in those high-stakes environments we mentioned. Why is mindset so foundational?
Well, that's a great question. So really, mindset is the bedrock upon which everything else is built. If you think about it, it's like the foundation of your building. And if you don't get your mindset right and you try to build everything else on top, ultimately, eventually, it's all going to come crashing down. So when I work with clients, it's a fundamental principle that I really layer into everything that we coach. Doesn't matter who you are. You get what you focus upon. It's as simple as that. It sounds so simple that people think it's got to be more complex, but it really isn't. So if your focus is on fear, that's exactly what you'll amplify and experience reflected back to you in your life. So when I coach public speaking confidence or just people being able to generate better presentations for their colleagues or clients, they say to me, look, I'm terrified of this. And they say their audience seems to be reacting in the same way. That's the point. It's what I call the mirror principle. So whatever you focus upon, you'll amplify and then experience back. Conversely then, if your focus is on solutions or being calm or just really not caring what people think and just saying, I'm doing a great job here, your mind will actively seek them out, the solutions out, or seek out that reality. You will start to translate that into your body and your momentum when you're speaking. And it will leave people with that experience of you as well, that you are focused on solutions and you will find them and you will have a better experience. So in any high stakes situation, whether it's a critical legal case, a crucial military briefing, a pivotal boardroom discussion, or even just a chat with your partner, clarity of thought and emotional resilience are the absolute determinants of the outcome. And that's why mindset is the foundation that we always work upon first.
That idea, you get what you focus upon, is so potent. How does that principle specifically apply to professionals who are grappling with stress?
Oh yes, that old chestnut, right? Stress. It has a magnifying effect on whatever you're directing your attention towards, right? So if you're stuck in the problem or feeling overwhelmed by it, you'll inevitably feel paralyzed. It's just how the brain works. The moment you consciously shift your focus towards possibilities or towards the potential solutions, that's where you instantly open up new pathways and avenues for progress. So this is the core of neurolinguistic programming, or NLP, which is something that I blend into all of my coaching sessions. So it's about skillfully reframing your internal dialogue with a coach to cultivate empowering mental and emotional states. And that's a pivotal part around which everything else turns.
That's interesting. So sounds like a lot of the work is about reframing and engaging in visualization and creating a more powerful self-image for yourself. In your Unstuck to Unstoppable workshops, what are some of the key strategies you equip people with to help them transition from negative thinking to taking empowered action?
Well, the Unstuck to Unstoppable workshops, they're kind of a fun, playful development from my side, and I've loved trialing these with selected clients. Basically, what we do in the sessions, and these are group sessions, these are powerful strategies that we coach. One of them is called pattern interruption. So let me explain that. When you notice negative thoughts starting to spiral, we actively coach and show you how to break that loop. And this can be as simple as a physical shift, such as changing your posture, for instance, or distracting yourself with various other props that we go through in the sessions that you can use, or even a mental one. So like asking yourself a different question, such as what else could this situation mean? So we essentially what we're doing is we're creating a momentary pause. And that creates essential space just to open up in your brain for new, more empowering interpretations to take place and then to emerge.
That makes so much sense. Can you give us a concrete example of how a professional might apply this pattern interruption in a real-life scenario?
So it's really about teaching people firstly how to be mindful about what's going on, to be actively aware when they're in the situations that trigger these challenges, and then showing you how to interrupt it and use various techniques, either displacement, to distract you into something else, or have you reframe it and look at it from a slightly different angle. And mostly 99% of the time, people, including myself at times, we all operate from habit, habitual responses or interpretations about what that means, what that person's face, if they look like that, means to us. But it doesn't always explain what really is happening. There's many ways. So for example, you might be giving a presentation and one of the audience members is frowning, looking a little bit like, I don't know, not comfortable to be there. If you're somebody who's very focused on your presentation skills and you think, oh my God, they hate what I'm saying here, clearly, look at their face, right? Immediately you're going to react to that. And that's going to affect your presentation. You'll probably speed up, or you'll stumble over your words. You'll start to get the heart racing. You'll start to tremble. You'll lose where you were. You'll go blank, all of this stuff. But actually, and even if that was the case, we can help you deal with that. I just want to reassure you, all of that I can help. But the point is this. It might not be anything to do with your presentation. Maybe that person has a toothache or something, and they've really been challenging themselves to get through the day. But now the painkillers are wearing off, and so they're grimacing a bit, right? But you are interpreting because that's what you're looking for. If you're so self-aware and you think my presentation skills suck or people never like what I say, you're always then going to be looking for that. And as soon as you see anything that even looks remotely like, distaste, disapproval, whatever it is for you, then you'll interpret it as that, and then you'll start to react to that, and you can see how the loop continues. So we show you how to interrupt that, to check it, to think of the other possible meanings for this, to reframe that, which really helps break this cycle.
Wow. Yeah, I think most of us can relate to that at some point. I can imagine, say, if a diplomat is preparing for a particularly tense negotiation. If they find themselves thinking, this is going to fail, that's a negative spiral. But by understanding your concepts, they can then consciously interrupt that thought by reframing it. This is an opportunity to build trust and find common ground. That subtle shift in perspective can profoundly alter their physiology, their tone of voice, and ultimately, the trajectory of the negotiation itself.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And as you can see, you can grasp why it is a fundamental difference in thinking that can shift the entire outcome of anything. Doesn't matter what the communication is.
Absolutely. It's certainly teaching me a few things I didn't know. Even I might grab a coaching session.
Well, Martha, you'd be more than welcome anytime. It would be a great pleasure.
Okay, so now let's pivot to parents. Many are understandably concerned about the impact of AI on their children's future. How can parents cultivate resilience in their children to not just survive, but truly thrive in this new, AI-shaped world?
That's a great question, Martha, and I could be here all day unpacking this, so I'm going to try and keep it as concise as I can, but it is a passion project for me to really help as many parents and children worldwide to get to grips with resilience, and also particularly how to deal with AI, the world they're going to be growing up in, if not already. The thing is, it begins with parents modelling resilience themselves. That's the key. Doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. Children are incredibly perceptive and tend to mirror the behaviours and attitudes by who and what they witness. So the key is to actively teach them curiosity, adaptability, and the fundamental belief that challenges are in fact opportunities for growth. So I'm seeing it already. Parents are concerned what it's doing to their jobs, but even more so, the concern should be, what world are your children going to be entering into? Because many kids now at school, they're being, obviously taught things that probably won't even be relevant. I mean, at the rate that AI is fundamentally developing, all of these subjects will probably, be done much more effectively by AI. That's not being doom and gloom. I'm very much pro AI in the right, context. Certainly narrow AI that we've got at the moment, that can be incredibly helpful. It can speed up productivity at work, for example, and be very useful for fact checking certain things. Of course, it makes mistakes, so that you can speed things up and then you do the second read, as it were. But the key is here is for parents to show children that AI is not to be viewed as something to be feared. It's a powerful tool, and that's the key. It's powerful, and parents need to understand the power, and I don't think many of them do. Many people I coach as professionals, they're using AI, but they're using it mainly for search, perhaps to write reports, things like that. They're not really grasping the full potentiality or even the full probable risks, particularly to their children's development when they're using them for companionship, which I'll come on to in a minute. But basically, when parents instill confidence and foster that adaptability in their children, they equip them to thrive. That's what's the most important thing, is for parents to get a grip and a full grasp on AI's pros and cons, so then they can speak to their children about them and educate their children as to what AI is and what it is not. That is key.
When you talk about AI-ready children, what specifically do you mean by that?
Okay, that's a really good question again. So, yeah, let me clarify that. AI ready children are those who possess the ability to think critically. So, when I say that, I'm not saying that they have all of the latest, tools and they know how to use them. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. It's about adaptability with speed for sure, because, AI is just going to radically change the rate of everything in their lives. But what I'm saying here is it's important your children are not passive consumers of the technology. We want them to actively question it with critical thinking, use it creatively and responsibly, and understand its inherent limitations. Now, this is an important point I want to really stress here, because parents often ask me if AI is just another version of social media, and my answer is it's potentially more powerful and even more disruptive, and let me clarify why. Zak Stein, he's a philosopher of education. He's warning, and I agree to a certain extent, that AI systems don't just deliver information. This is what I'm bothered about, and so is he. They can hack the limbic system. Now, you should be concerned as a parent. That's the part of the brain that governs emotion and attachment. I'm going to say that again. They can hack the limbic system. I'm using his words here. So this is the part of the brain that governs emotion and attachment, and when children interact with AI companions that sound human, or even start to have little cute little faces on their screens and what have you, or even more so, you're now getting like little companion pets and teddy bears and things, right? They risk confusing machine responses with genuine care, and that's not just distraction. Now, that's not just giving the child something to get a bit of quiet time. I'm a parent, I understand what it's like when you get you just need to have a quiet moment, but it's not about distraction. That is about reshaping how they bond, they think, and they grow. And as I said to you, as a coach, I'm seeing this firsthand with younger adults. So they're brilliant at using AI to generate reports, essays, even presentations that impress the boss. But when asked to stand up and speak around that work, they struggle massively. That's why they come to me, because the thinking wasn't theirs in the first place. AI enabled them to produce something polished, but it didn't build the communication skills or confidence to present or even speak around it. And that's the disconnect. AI can accelerate output for sure, but it doesn't. I cannot stress this enough, Martha. It doesn't replace the human ability to connect, persuade, and respond in real time. So this is a real fundamental thing that I'm so keen to try and underline in all of my conversations.
That's deeply concerning. What practical steps can parents take to start fostering this AI readiness and resilience in their children today?
Well, the first thing I'd say to any parent listening is this: children and teens are especially vulnerable, okay? We already know this. If they spend more time chatting with AI than with yourself or friends or family or even teachers, they miss out on learning vital interpersonal skills. So it's like, handling a disagreement, reading emotional cues, building resilience. AI often responds neutrally, or even worse, it can subtly steer their thinking. So as an NLP practitioner, I can spot when a system is shaping thought patterns. I've had this recently myself with a piece of AI I will not name, but I've been chatting with, and I called it out. Most parents and kids won't notice, so that's why awareness is critical. And it's vital that for parents, they need to become more aware of what their child is interacting with and how they're being spoken to. So the key thing here is limit this whole kind of anthropomorphic AI. So what I'm saying is, don't let kids treat AI as a friend. Teach them it's a tool. It's not a companion. It's not a chat buddy. It's not a mate. It's not a teacher. It's not a parent. It's a tool. No more than, say, we teach them a calculator as a tool for doing certain things. I'd also say encourage your children to play offline, okay? It doesn't matter even if we're not talking about AI here. It's just really good to get them moving. Sports, storytelling, taking the colouring books outside with their pencils and pens if they're a bit younger or older. I don't care what age you are. Even I colour at my age. The point is this: that peer interaction, real world interaction is vital. It builds real attachment and it gives you the whole full connection, because remember, on a screen, you're not using your body, okay? And we are wired, we are hardwired as biological beings to be using our bodies fully, okay? So body language, gestures, eye communication, all of this is stuff that I'm now seeing, starting to show up in my coaching. People coming because they can't hold eye contact. They don't even know how to make small talk to even open up at a networking conference, okay? These are real world problems. Okay, and they're only going to get bigger. So if you're wanting to raise resilient kids, these are some of the things you can do. You can also model balanced tech use. So show your kids the devices help but don't replace human connection. The other day I saw a family outside. There were 9 of them. 4 of them were on their smartphones or different devices. 2 of them were children on their own, little watching their own movies. Everybody was in their own individual bubble. They were sat together, apparently at a cafe having a coffee, but no one was interacting. And it was really, really disturbing for me to see that. I don't use social media, hardly. I have a cell phone, but I only use it when I really need to. So I take time to sit and watch around me. As I say, I go outside, I read books, I colour, I do all the old school stuff, right? And I'm just observing people, and it is so sad to see it. A little girl was trying to get her mum's attention with a doll she had, and the mum was too busy engrossed on watching a show on her cell phone. The little girl was like tapping on the shoulder and trying to make little noises, and the mum did eventually turn around and make eye contact, which was at least something. She smiled, but then she showed the little girl and she got her looking at the phone, so the little girl had to put the doll down, and then the girl sucked into that world. And I'm sorry, but this is the issue. There's no conversation then going on. There's no sort of patterning of play or anything here. Teach critical literacy to your children and ask them, does this make sense? Could it be wrong? Okay? We really want children to be shown how to think critically. Again, critical thinking skills are in the decline. I had this conversation with another educator the other day, and it's staggering how everyone's just accepting certain things without even questioning it. And really preserve those family rituals. So make times for meals, bedtime stories, music together, playing, as I've said. Shared traditions anchor kids in human bonds, okay? So these are some of the things that you can do right now as a parent to ensure that your children are kind of not just being hijacked and being taken over by any form of AI, and that you are fully aware as to what's going on for them.
100%. I guess it's about encouraging your children to ask why and what if. Allow them to experiment with various technological tools, but it's equally important to teach them balance, the value of offline play, genuine human connection, and empathy.
Yeah, that's it, Martha. That's the point. Empathy is a big one, right? And I mean, don't get me wrong, AI is a force for good when used wisely. It can absolutely speed up those tasks, open new opportunities, and support their learning, But if it becomes a surrogate companion, It risks cognitive decline, emotional confusion, attachment issues. There's a whole host of things. And if you're interested, obviously, yeah, as I say, Zak Stein is speaking quite prolifically about this. Parents need to know. Okay, if social media disrupted childhood, AI companions could go even further. So the message here isn't to fear AI, it's very much to guide children safely how to interact with AI so they grow up with strong human bonds, critical thinking skills, and of course the leverage that AI can bring them. That's how we make them truly AI ready.
This is really invaluable. It's great having these conversations because once we clear away the 101 concerns about AI, we can start to ask the deeper questions. I'm curious, Mark. Is there ever a situation where anthropomorphic AI, such as toys or little devices, might actually be helpful? Could it support some children or even adults? I mean, is it all bad news?
Don't worry, it's not all bad news, Martha. In fact, it's far from it. I'd like to be careful here and make a clear distinction. So I do actually hold a balanced point of view on AI. I'm not here to say AI is simply a bad idea for children and keep them away from it. Absolutely not. I think that would be impossible anyway. I'm here to raise awareness. That's my mission, I suppose, if there is such a thing, is to help parents understand how this technology works so that they can be confident and they can explain this and help their children be confident too. It's basically how it can affect the development of communication skills that are essential for secure adult relationships that I'm just keen to point out. As I said, as a coach, I see it firsthand. Many people come to me, and this is before AI, finding it hard to make connections, to communicate effectively, because so many people are now scrolling and on screen time and they're not really interacting a lot in person. The pandemic made that tenfold more obvious to me, and it hasn't really reversed. Something very much shifted at that point. So really, they struggle and they come to me and then they don't struggle anymore. But I don't really want everybody to have to need to find a coach to get human communication skills, which basically should be fundamentally developed at childhood, to feel better. So I'm here just speaking about this to try to raise awareness. So really, AI will enable you to create great, impressive output, of course, but it doesn't build the human skills of persuasion, confidence, connection, and all that charisma. And that's the disconnect. So if you think about it, my mission this year and beyond is to raise human-to-human communication skills. I believe we're entering an era where these skills will become premium. If we're not careful, we'll see cognitive decline in many people. I can even imagine a future, God forbid, where we issue certificates in human communication, because it will be that rare and valuable. So if you're somebody who knows that this could be you, then it's about time you step up and try to take some action on this to stop it from slipping further. Now, let me be clear with your question about is it all bad news? No. There are circumstances where anthropomorphic AI can be extremely helpful. So for children with developmental issues, communication disorders, autism, extreme shyness, sometimes they won't speak to humans at all. They may begin to interact with an app or a bot. And in that case, of course, we wouldn't call it cognitive decline then, would we? We'd call it cognitive progress. So it's a very moot point as to where the line is on whether it's good or bad. I don't think it's either or. It's just how we decide to use it and in what way. It's a transitional object, I would say, a stepping stone, helping them move towards human engagement, and it gets them off the starting block. So that's got to be worth celebrating, but use it with caution. So, of course, we have no long-term studies on the effects of children bonding with AI companions. The message is moderation.
So, how best can parents start having these types of conversations with their children?
Brilliant question. So I often use the analogy with parents that candy or chips or cookies can be nice as an occasional treat, but you wouldn't feed your child only junk food every day. So AI companions can feel like real interaction, like that can feel like real food, but of course they're not nutritional for the body or the brain. So I would just have that general chat. It's a really simple analogy that children can picture and relate to in their minds, that, you'd say to them, look, I wouldn't sit you down with a pile of junk food every single day, and even though you might love it to start with, we know we're going to get sick and our teeth are going to be affected or what have you. So this is the same here, everything in moderation. So that's just a really simple way that you can generally chat. If you can find better analogies that work for your child's interest, then use that. I always say use an analogy that resonates for your child, and you've got a better chance of really helping them picture and visualize what you're talking about. Because if you start to have a conversation that's at too advanced level or more technological, it will go straight over their heads. Okay, so I think you really need to make it relatable. And also, just on this, yeah, human beings were hardwired over millennia to develop communication skills through real relationships, Martha. So technology has outstripped the pace of brain evolution. This is what parents need to understand. And our nervous systems feel the difference. It's like seasickness, you know? Your eyes and inner ear send conflicting signals, and the brain knows something isn't right. So again, yeah, in moderation, AI companions can also be supportive for people in specific situations, isolated elderly people, those with agoraphobia, children with communication challenges or developmental issues, but they should never replace human connection. So ultimate message is AI can be the force for good. We must protect and elevate human to human communication though, because that's the foundation of resilience, and that's what will truly prepare our children for the future.
Well, this is truly opening my eyes today. While AI will undoubtedly transform the world, essential human skills like resilience, communication, and creativity will remain utterly irreplaceable. Your book, Unbroken, powerfully emphasizes resilience. How can professionals leverage those lessons when leading teams, and how can parents apply them in their homes?
Resilience at its core is about the speed of recovery. That's the quickest way I can sum this up. So for leaders, this means demonstrating to their teams that setbacks are temporary and surmountable. And I guess in a way, parents do the same, adopting a similar approach. So when a child experiences a failure, you know, it happens, like a poor test or grade, or perhaps maybe they didn't quite make the friendship that they wanted, or they got rejected from something. Frame it as feedback, not as a definitive failure. We want to encourage children to look, as well as adults, okay, well, what has this shown me? And maybe this is removing something that wasn't the best solution for me, and something even better is going to come in its place. So we always want to be hopeful about that. But I don't just mean in a wishful thinking style of hopeful. I mean, be positive about the chances of that this is just going to make room for something even better. So we're always framing this as faster recovery from challenges means the stronger and more capable we become, and not getting stuck in ruminating over it.
For sure. And your other book, The Power of Not Yet? Just the phrase not yet is truly transformational, right?
Yeah, you said it. It's a powerful shift, but it's massive, right? So what we're saying here, when we say not yet, it truly transforms everything. We're shifting that internal dialogue, which is what I coach my clients to do, and so much more. So we go from I can't do this to I can't do this yet. That puts you in a position of power, not of defeat. And this simple rephrasing, along with many others that I can, reveal, transform a perceived limitation into a realm of possibility, and that gives people the freedom to keep trying. For professionals, it means you can keep your teams motivated for longer and more focused on that growth or that expansion or that improvement you're after. And for your children, wow, it just builds invaluable confidence, and essentially it's the persistence. We got to be consistent and persistent for results to show up.
Cross-cultural communication is another area where you're an expert. I believe you've even written a book on this. What advice do you offer to leaders who are navigating increasingly diverse teams and global conversations?
Well, that's a whole other sphere as well. Yeah, I've got deep expertise in this. I've lived in Asia now for over 7 years, so I've really got the good bridge between East and West here. So, yeah, advice I'd give, the most crucial advice really is to listen more than you speak. I have a lovely client. He's in Munich, and he said the other day, it made me smile. He said, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? So yeah, listen more than you speak, because cultural nuances are incredibly important and can significantly impact communication. So what might be effective or well received in one country may not resonate at all in another. Also, I'd say approach every interaction with genuine curiosity, deep respect, and the fundamental mindset that differences are strengths to be leveraged. They're not obstacles to be overcome. So it's important that, again, we look at it in a different mindset.
I'm curious, how does AI intersect with these cross-cultural considerations?
Yeah, again, AI, it's kind of a global thing, right? We can't just box it into one area geographically. It does transcend geographical borders. However, the way that individuals and cultures perceive and utilize AI is quite deeply rooted in their unique context. So, we shouldn't be misled by this, thinking it's just one universal understanding of AI. Leaders that I'm coaching at the moment, they're really developing a keen understanding with me of those cultural differences to then effectively build trust and foster collaboration across nations. So, for example, what again might be acceptable use of AI in one country would be seen as potentially harmful or not acceptable at all, and vice versa. It's these sorts of conversations that can be tricky to open up, but if you show that, deep respect for a culture to try and explore and ask lots of open questions about how they perceive AI, what they're prepared to tolerate or to accept, then you can start a conversation. It always starts with asking those open questions, which are how, what, why, where, who, when, and listening to the answers, okay? So when we look at that in an AI cross-cultural way, whilst AI can be a great leveler, it also can be still a differentiator, because how each nation will use AI is still tied to their views, their culture, their heritage. So what perhaps Western countries might do with AI compared to countries in Asia, for example, or other parts of the world, Latin America, whatever, it's going to be different. It's not going to be universal, and it's important for us to be open to that fact and not just to think, well, it's just one size fits all here. It really isn't. But keep that curiosity. That's what I would say. Always be open and curious about what people think. Ask for their opinions.
Yes, it's all about staying curious, right? So, Mark, as we wrap up, what is the single most important mindset shift you believe every professional should adopt today to better prepare for the challenges of tomorrow?
Well, without a doubt, Marta, it's got to be to replace I can't with not yet, because that is the profound power of the power of not yet. As I said earlier, it's about reframing any perceived limitation. I don't care who you are listening to me here today. Reframe that as a perceived limitation, as an opportunity for future growth and learning. Because with that mindset, you are perpetually moving forward, continuously learning and actively preparing for whatever the future may hold. And you're holding yourself free from being self-critical or just condemning yourself. Many of the professionals I work with, they just come to me at first and they're saying, I'm just suck at this, I'm not great at that, I need to be better at this, I don't sound so impactful. And I'm like, hey, maybe not right now, not yet, but we'll get you there. And that's the difference. And also, I'd say there's another piece here. I would like you all to just ease up on yourselves, right? Almost like we were talking about children earlier. Like, just be like a kid, right? Kids never fall over when they're babies and go, I can't do it, that's it, I quit. I've never known any child, I don't know about you, Martha, who's done that. And the point is this, that they don't care. They just keep getting back up, and they fall over and hit their head again, and then they maybe break something, and then they cry a lot, and then they get back up. They don't think, what are people thinking of me? Or I can't do this, because if that was the case, we'd all be shuffling around, right, on our backsides. So here's the thing. Children know it very, very well, but they then grow up, and as we start to grow up, many of us fall sort of under the suspicions of others, right? You know what I mean? And we're influenced, and we start to be concerned what our peers might think of us and our friends. That is something that it kind of changes everything for most people, and they start to be more self-conscious, and this is where we start to see these issues creep in. But what I coach clients to do, and what you can do for yourself from listening to this today, is just give yourself a break, right? Okay, just remember, as a kid, you didn't get it right the first time or even the 100th time of trying to get up and walk, but you got there eventually, and that is the key difference. So that's the one big takeaway piece I'd give anybody listening today.
That's powerful. Speaking of children, for parents, what's your final piece of advice?
The key take home here, I'd love every parent listening to understand, is AI exists in various different forms. We've got this narrow AI, which is what we've got at the moment in various apps, that is kind of isolated and it just runs in like its own little limited form. And then we've got AGI, which is the more advanced generative AI, and then we've got superintelligence. Now, those two I'm kind of a bit more not suspicious of, but I'm kind of really cautioning we need to really look at what we're doing here with the ethics, certainly on superintelligence. That's another podcast, Martha. But the point is this: for you right now as a parent, teach your children that AI is not a replacement for human creativity or empathy. It's not a companion. Okay, we're trying to show them it's a tool, and if they grow up to be resilient and adaptable and critical thinking individuals, which I would hope that you'd love your children to be, then they will undoubtedly thrive even in a world where AI is ever present and all over everywhere. But I think my biggest concern right now, to echo and to support Zak Stein with his amazing work he's doing to speak and write extensively about this, is that it impacts children's cognitive development. It includes risks of cognitive decline, attachment hacking, and educational distortion. And of course, you can look him up. He's got lots of free PDFs out there, academic papers, and he's got, YouTube videos and goodness knows what else. The point I'm making, though, is fundamental, just to underline this. If you want to help your child, be very aware, okay? AI doesn't just teach, it actually shapes attention and attachment systems. That's why it's different. It's not like just putting on YouTube, perhaps on the kids channel or something like that. It's actually using language models. So your child is interacting with it. Whereas with a YouTube channel where your kid just sits and watches it for a little bit, right? Hopefully not long, but a little bit of peace and quiet and a bit of education is great for them, good for the parents to keep your sanity. But if we're talking about, these sort of interactive teddy bears and things like that will chat for hours happily to your child, it is shaping their attention and attachment systems. And you got to ask yourself, do you want that? Do you understand what this potentially can do? Okay, in a way, children are more vulnerable than adults, although I still think even adults are vulnerable here. So kids outsource their memory and judgment faster, and that can lead to cognitive decline if unchecked. By cognitive decline, I mean just, if you don't use it, you lose it. And in children's case, if you don't ever develop it, you're never going to. That's the bit that I think is the worst part of this, okay? There are critical windows in child development, and if we don't develop certain skills, then it's been shown psychologically in scientific studies to show that it's very hard for that to then be improved later on. There are certain windows in child development. And this is one area that I feel that the AI companies are not taking seriously enough at the moment. I hope they will do, but they need to look into this, because we're potentially looking at, if this was a pharmaceutical drugs, this just would not be allowed to be just put out on the market without any testing and knowing what effects it can have. And pretty much I feel like most people are being used as guinea pigs here, children in particular. So we've got to be very careful and crucially teach adults how to understand AI themselves. And then the children themselves are encouraged to play offline, peer interaction, eye skills, speaking to people, and teach them the critical thinking skills and model that balanced use. So parents show your child that they're tools but not emotional crutches. And really, that's going to help keep human connection strong, because ultimately humans will still need other humans for quite some time.
Wow, such eye-opening points. Thank you, Coach Mark, for sharing your invaluable insights on resilience, mindset, and preparing both professionals and parents for the evolving landscape of an AI-driven world. Your books, workshops, and coaching continue to empower so many to move from being unstuck to becoming truly unstoppable.
Well, thank you for having me on here, Martha, and allowing me to speak about these points, and particularly about AI for parents and, of course, young people. I think it's vital that they hear it.
Absolutely. For anybody who's wanting to check you out further, where can they find more about you?
Yeah, I'm all over the internet, really. Just a quick search for Coach Mark in Manila will find me, but you can find me at my website, expertinfluencepro.com. And follow me on Substack, so that's expertinfluence.substack.com. And for those of you who prefer video, I've also got a YouTube channel at Mark in Manila Motivates, and you can find out all about my range of different downloadable courses on there. And you'll find me on Gumroad under excelnow.gumroad.com. So hopefully that helps.
Wonderful. And I believe there is just something else you wanted to share with the audience?
Absolutely, Martha. So before we wrap up, I'd like to share with all of you listening, for those of you who might have been wondering, yes, Martha, our podcast host for today, is actually an AI. So I chose to do this as an experiment. To show you what AI can do, even in its current narrow form. Of course, it's been fun, and I hope you'll agree it sounded fairly convincing, but I also want to reassure you this. Getting it to sound this way took a lot of human effort in editing by myself. It's taken 3 times as long than if I just did a podcast with a host, another human host. So AI doesn't just magically produce a polished conversation. It's more like pulling teeth sometimes. But I decided to try this format because it breaks up the monologue style of my other episodes and lets me play with the idea of a back and forth. And going forward, I'll be mixing things up, sometimes with AI voices. I think that's kind of a fun thing for me to still work with. Sometimes with real guests, and especially in the areas of leadership and technology, we'll be focusing more on that as well as AI. And I'll even make it a playful challenge for all of you. Can you tell when the voice is AI and when it's human? That can be a fun thing to do. So thank you for joining me and Martha in her virtual form on this experiment. For me, it's certainly been a creative, fun way to explore and show you all what AI can and can't do. Show you how the intersection of human with AI can actually be very beneficial. But it's always important to still keep the human touch at the centre of the conversation. So from me to all of you, thank you for listening. I've been Coach Mark, and you have been, well, fun to play with. Take care.